Face a brand new chart for the head and for the heart. It's your journey, your tools.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something pretty universal, that feeling of the racing mind. Whether you call it anxiety or stress or a full-blown panic attack. It's that moment of hyperarousal where your heart is just pounding and your brain starts spinning out of control.
And the immediate reaction is always the same, isn't it? You try to use logic and you tell yourself, just calm down.
Exactly. Just calm down. And that's precisely the instruction we're going to challenge today.
It is. Our whole deep dive is built on this really comprehensive analysis of somatic tools, and it shows pretty conclusively why that standard approach just fails during acute stress.
So we're introducing a tool set, a really powerful one called dropping anchor techniques.
Right.
Our mission here is, well, it's ambitious. We want to give you a shortcut, not just to what works, but to the neurobiology behind it all.
The why.
The why. We want you to really get the science of nervous system regulation so you can move way beyond that generic advice.
And the central conflicts, the main idea that kept coming up in the research is this systemic failure of what we call top-down processing.
That's our logical brain.
That's your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex, the part that handles language and reason.
Yeah.
During one of these emotional storms, it's just not in the driver's seat.
So the way out has to be something else.
It has to be the bottom-up approach. You have to change your body's physical state first to then change your thought process.
So the goal for you listening is to get this deep, functional understanding. So you can walk away knowing the mechanism so well that you can pick the right tool for the right job every single time.
It's about, as the source material puts it, stabilizing the biological vessel during the storm.
I love that. Okay, let's drop anchor.
So we have to start by just validating that experience, that chaotic, overwhelming feeling. The analogy of the emotional storm is, it's perfect, but to regulate it, we have to get under the hood.
We had to look at the neurobiology. Okay, so let's unpack that failure of top-down processing. I mean, when people get help for anxiety, they're often told to use things like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Right, which relies on the idea that your highest brain functions, the prefrontal cortex, or PFC.
The CEO of the brain.
The CEO, exactly. That it can successfully, inhibit the more primitive emotional parts of the brain when we feel a threat.
And that works fine when you're calm.
It works perfectly when you're calm or even moderately stressed. But the second you hit acute stress, and that could be a bear in the woods or, a terrifying email.
Or just a thought.
The amygdala, which is the brain's alarm center, detects danger. And that triggers this immediate, massive discharge of the sympathetic nervous system.
And this isn't just a little jolt. We're talking about a full-on chemical emergency.
A full-on chemical emergency. It's a rapid dump of these powerful catecholamines, adrenaline, noradrenaline, and then cortisol on top of that.
And that's all designed to get the body ready for action.
For immediate life-saving action. But in our modern world, where the threat is often abstract, that chemistry has a really devastating effect on the PFC.
And this is what the sources call a cortical shutdown, or hypofrontality. This feels like the absolute core of why just calm down doesn't work.
It is the core. Hypofrontality is the reality of high stress. Your PFC, the part that does planning, logic, language, it functionally goes offline.
It's not broken, though.
No, not at all. It's an intentional, survival-based reallocation of resources. Your brain is saying, we don't need to write a thesis right now. We need to get blood and energy to the legs.
So when you're in that panic state, what does it actually feel like when the PFC is offline?
It feels like you can't string a thought together. You might not remember simple things. You can't find your words.
You stumble over sentences.
Exactly. Your short-term memory is shot. And the racing thoughts are just these repetitive, catastrophic loops because the part of your brain that reality tests them is temporarily out of service.
So the big conclusion here, the foundation for this whole deep dive, is that telling yourself to think logically it's neurobiologically futile.
Completely. The racing mind isn't the problem. It's a symptom of a physiological state. The thoughts are just a byproduct of your body being in a state of emergency.
Which means the only way in is through the body, the somatic gateway.
Bottom-up processing. You have to use conscious control over your physiology, your breath, your muscles, your senses to influence your nervous system first. The calm thoughts come second.
Okay, but if the PFC is offline, How does the body send that all-clear signal back up to the brainstem to turn off the alarm? There has to be a specific pathway for that, right?
There is. It's the vagus nerve. It's the longest cranial nerve in the body, and it works with the insular cortex, which is like the brain's map of your internal physical state. But the direction of the communication is what's absolutely crucial here.
This is that mind-blowing aha moment from the research.
It really is. I mean, we think of the brain sending signals down to the organs, and it does. But roughly 80% of the vagus nerve fibers are afferent.
Meaning they send signals from the body up to the brain?
Up to the brain, primarily to the brainstem and other subcortical structures, completely bypassing that offline PFC.
80%, that just flips the whole mind-body connection on its head. We think the brain is the control tower, but the body is actually doing most of the reporting.
And that's where our power lies. If the body is sending 80% of the data, then consciously changing that data is the fastest way to change your brain's state.
So you're creating a safety signal.
You are creating a safety signal. By, say, consciously slowing your exhale or relaxing your diaphragm, you send this irrefutable physical evidence of safety up the spinal cord to the brainstem.
The signal is basically, hey, I know the amygdala is freaking out, but down here in the body, everything is actually operating under conditions of non-threat.
Precisely. And those primitive brain structures, the ones still running the survival show, they receive that physical data slow, heart rate relaxed muscles, and they start to downregulate the alarm. That's what allows the PFC to gradually come back online. That is dropping anchor.
Okay, so we know why we have to use the body. Now we need the map. And that's where Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory comes in. It moves us past that simple fight or flight versus rest and digest model.
It does, and understanding this three-part map is, it's non-negotiable for doing this effectively. You just can't treat a panicked, mobilized person the same way you treat someone who's dissociated and shut down.
Right. So let's start with the target state, the ideal. State 1, ventral vagal.
This is the ventral vagal circuit. It's the newest, evolutionarily speaking. It's the mammalian system for social engagement. Its job is safety, connection, and feeling good.
So what are the physical signs that tell us we're in that safe zone?
A regulated heart rate, for one. Easy, rhythmic breathing. Your middle ear muscles are actually tuned to pick out hummy voices from background noise, which is a huge safety cue.
That's fascinating.
It is. You have facial expressivity. You feel curious. You can get into a state of flow. When you're grounded and secure, that's your ventral vagal system at work.
And the goal is always to maintain or get back to this state.
That's the goal. Now, let's look at the emotional storm itself. State 2, the sympathetic nervous system.
Mobilization, the classic high-energy response.
Right. This is a mix of older reptilian and newer mammalian systems. The feeling is high-energy anxiety, panic, maybe rage or hypervigilance. The ship's crew is frantically preparing to fight or flee the storm.
And the physical markers here are pretty obvious.
Very. Increased heart rate, shallow chest breathing, dilated pupils, muscle tension in the jaw, shoulders, chest. Your body is physiologically locked and loaded.
So for this state, our somatic goal is clear. We either need to discharge that energy safely,
Like with a wall push.
or we need to actively hit the brakes on the heart rate using our breath.
Exactly. You're managing that overwhelming go energy. But then there's a third state, and this one is so often misunderstood. State 3, the dorsal vagal complex.
This is the oldest, the reptilian response. Immobilization, freeze.
It's what happens when fight or flight seems futile or too dangerous. This is the system crash. It's not high-energy anxiety. It's dissociation, collapse, numbness, that feeling of checking out.
The ship has just sunk to the bottom of the sea.
That's a great way to put it. And the physiological signs are the complete opposite of the sympathetic state.
How so?
Sympathetic is tachycardia, a fast heart rate. Dorsal vagal is bradycardia, an unnaturally slow heart rate. And hypotension, very low blood pressure. Breathing becomes almost imperceptible. You feel cold, faint. It's a conservation of energy, like a feigned death response.
That distinction is so critical. If sympathetic is flooring the gas pedal, dorsal vagal is slamming the emergency brakes so hard the engine just stalls.
And that leads to a totally inverted goal. We don't want to downregulate. We need activation. We need stimulating tools, sensory grounding, intense movement, cold water to sort of jolt the system out of that slump so it can get back to a place where it can be regulated.
So understanding if you're mobilized or shut down is the absolute first step to choosing the right anchor.
It's the foundation.
Okay, so we have the map, we have the target, but the sources are really clear that just doing these physical techniques in a vacuum isn't enough. You need a mental framework. And that's where acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, gives us the dropping anchor framework, ACE-E.
The ACE acronym is the cognitive scaffold. It's the mental process that makes sure the anchor gets deployed correctly. It's not about distraction. It's about consciously acknowledging the storm while keeping yourself tethered to the present.
Let's start with A. Acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. Why is this first step so critical? Why not just jump straight to the breathing?
Because if you do that, the somatic exercise becomes an avoidance strategy. You're essentially trying to suppress the chaos, and as ACT teaches, what you resist persists. You're basically starting a fight with your own anxiety.
Which just adds more fuel to the fire.
Exactly. The instruction from the research is to adopt the stance of a scientist, curiously observing what's going on in your inner world. You just note it. I notice a strong urge to run, or I'm noticing the thought that I'm going to fail. No judgment, no argument.
Okay, but here's a practical challenge, and no listeners will feel this. If my mind is racing with catastrophic thoughts, how do I stop myself from just spiraling when I acknowledge them? The scientist stance can feel impossible in a real panic attack.
That's a great question. The key is in what's called diffusion. You're not acknowledging the content of the thought as a fact. You're acknowledging the presence of the thought as just a mental event.
So you're not getting hooked by the story.
You're not getting hooked. If you feel yourself spiraling, you bring your attention back to the process of observation. I notice I'm having the thought that I am spiraling. It creates this little bit of distance. You're the sky. The thought is just the weather.
That's a huge shift. Okay, so once we've acknowledged the storm without fighting it, we move to C. Come back into your body.
This is where you radically redirect your attention. The anxious mind lives in stories about the past or the future. This step moves your focus away from that story and onto immediate physical data, the here and now.
And we do this with tangible physical actions.
Absolutely. Simple, controlled movements. The classic examples are pushing your feet firmly into the floor, wiggling your toes, or straightening your spine and really feeling the chair beneath you.
Why do those small movements matter so much neurobiologically?
Because they are nonverbal proof of agency. When your survival brain is screaming that you're about to be overrun, executing a simple voluntary action proves to that primitive part of your brain that you still have control over your body. It's physical evidence that you're tethered, not helpless.
Right. So once we've acknowledged and we've physically anchored, we move to E. Engage in what you are doing. This bridges the internal and the external.
Exactly. This step expands your awareness outward. Anxiety pulls us out of the present. Engagement forces us to register the external world, sights, sounds, textures, and refocus on whatever the task at hand is.
So if I'm at my desk, I've acknowledged the anxiety, I've pushed my feet into the floor. Engagement is then putting my hand back on the mouse and deliberately noticing the cool plastic under my palm.
That's it, perfectly. You're anchoring yourself firmly in the here and now. By demanding that your brain process that external data, you're starving the anxiety loop of the cognitive resources it needs to keep running. And it's a constant loop. Acknowledge, come back, engage.
If the ACE framework is the structure, then breathing has to be the primary physical lever, right? The sources really highlight how unique it is.
It is unique. It's the only bodily function that's both autonomic, it just happens on its own, and also under our immediate conscious control.
Which makes it the most powerful tool for manually adjusting the nervous system. Let's get into the science of it, this mechanism called the vagal brake.
The whole thing works by modulating the vagus nerve through a phenomenon called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, or RSA, which sounds complicated, but it's just the natural, healthy way your heart rate fluctuates in sync with your breath.
So how does that sync act as a brake on anxiety?
It's all about inhibition, really. When you inhale, the vagal brake lifts a little and your heart rate speeds up to get oxygen in the blood. But when you exhale, that's the magic. The vagus nerve releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine into the heart.
And acetylcholine is a calming chemical.
It's a powerful parasympathetic compound. It actively slows the heart rate down. So the longer you can make that exhale, the more acetylcholine you release and the more you slow the heart down. That's why every calming breath technique is all about a long exhale.
And there's a direct line to the brainstem here, too. Something about the nucleus tractus solitarius.
Yes. So when you breathe slowly and deeply, you stimulate these little stretch receptors in your lungs. They send these high-amplitude signals straight up to the nucleus tractus solitarius, or NTS, in the brainstem.
Okay, what is the NTS? In simple terms.
Think of it like a central relay station for your physiological state. When it gets those strong rhythmic signals from the slow breathing, it acts like a global synchronizer. It tells the amygdala and the hypothalamus to power down their alarm systems, and it promotes a system-wide state of calm. It's a built-in reset button.
That science gives so much weight to the first technique, diaphragmatic breathing, belly breathing.
It's the foundation because it physically reverses that shallow, high-chest breathing that's so common in panic. That kind of breathing just reinforces the feeling of panic and an air hunger.
So the goal is to physically force the breath downward. What's the best protocol for making sure you're actually doing it right?
It's best to start lying down. Put one hand on your chest and the other on your belly. When you inhale slowly through your nose, your only job is to make the belly hand rise. The chest hand should stay pretty still.
That physical feedback is key. If I'm anxious, just being told to relax my breath is useless. But focusing on moving my hand gives my brain a concrete task.
It bypasses the resistance. And you want to aim for a specific tempo that maximizes that RSA effect, about 6 breaths per minute. So a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale, slow and steady.
Okay, now let's get into a technique built for high-stress environments. Box breathing, tactical breathing, the Navy SEALs go-to.
Right. This one is designed to regulate you while keeping you alert, which is a key difference. It's not meant to make you sleepy. The big difference is the breath holds.
Why are the holds so important? It seems counterintuitive to hold your breath when you're anxious.
It does. But what the holds do is allow for a controlled accumulation of CO2. Now, high sensitivity to CO2 is a known marker for panic disorder. By practicing these controlled holds, you're actually increasing your physiological tolerance for CO2, which raises your panic threshold over time.
And the rigid structure probably helps focus the mind too.
Immensely. It demands intense focus. Okay, so the protocol is the square. You inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. You hold the breath at the top for 4 seconds. And this is important. Keep your throat open. Don't clamp down. Then exhale through the mouth for 4. And finally, hold empty at the bottom for 4. You just cycle through that for a few minutes.
The military application makes so much sense. It's regulation with alertness.
Exactly. Now, for the opposite effect, deep, immediate relaxation, we have 4-7-8 breathing. This comes from Dr. Andrew Weil, and it's based on ancient yogic practice.
And the mechanism here is just that super long exhale, right? An 8-count exhale has to be a massive vagal break.
It's a potent tranquilizer. That 4-to-8 ratio forces a really prolonged engagement of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's basically maximal vagal inhibition. But there's one crucial step that a lot of people miss that makes it even more effective.
Okay, tell us the detail.
It's the tongue position. Before you start, you have to place the tip of your tongue against the ridge of tissue right behind your upper front teeth. And you keep it there the whole time.
The whole time.
The whole time. Then you inhale quietly through your nose for 4, you hold for 7, and then you exhale completely through your mouth, making an audible whoosh sound for a long count of 8.
Wow. Okay, so that 7-count hold stabilizes everything before the massive parasympathetic surge of the 8-count exhale.
Yeah.
That tongue detail is fascinating.
It is, but that potency comes with a warning. Because it's such a strong downregulator, it can make you feel lightheaded, especially at first.
Yeah.
So you must do it sitting or lying down and limit yourself to 4 cycles to start.
Right. And finally, the newest technique from the research, the physiological sigh.
This one is amazing because it wasn't invented, it was discovered. It's a natural reflex our bodies use to reset our breathing and offload CO2 quickly. We do it unconsciously all the time.
How does that double inhale mechanism work?
It's really elegant. Stress makes the tiny little air sacs in our lungs, the alveoli, collapse. That first deep inhale fills the lungs, but that second sharp little inhale at the very top forces those collapsed alveoli to pop back open.
So you're dramatically increasing the surface area for gas exchange.
Exactly, which lets you get rid of a lot more carbon dioxide on the exhale. It's the best mechanical fix for that air hunger feeling and panic. The protocol is simple. A deep inhale through the nose, then a second, shorter inhale at the top, and then a long, slow, complete exhale through the mouth.
And the evidence for this one is really strong.
It is. A recent controlled trial showed that just 5 minutes of this a day led to greater improvements in mood and reduced arousal than both box breathing and mindfulness meditation. It's a powerhouse.
Okay, so we have the cognitive frame, we have the respiratory break. Now we need to bring in the rest of the body, our muscles, and our senses.
Right. And remember that feedback loop. Tense muscles signal danger to the brain. So muscular grounding is all about breaking that loop, either by inducing relaxation or by safely discharging all that stored energy.
Let's start with a classic. Progressive muscle relaxation, PMR, developed way back in the 1920s.
By Edmund Jacobson. And his premise was simple. Mental calm is just a natural result of physical relaxation. But PMR does two things. First, tensing and releasing the muscles reduces your overall resting muscle tone. But second, and this is key for chronic anxiety, it trains what's called interoceptive discrimination.
Okay, break that down. Interoceptive discrimination.
Interoception is your sense of your own internal state, your heartbeat, your digestion, your muscle tension. When you're chronically stressed, you kind of lose the ability to read your own signals. You get used to being tense.
So you normalize it.
You normalize it. PMR retrains that ability. By tensing a muscle to a 10 out of 10, then instantly releasing it to a 2 out of 10, you're creating this really stark contrast. You're teaching your body to feel the difference between tension and relaxation again.
And for an acute situation, we can use a shorter version.
An abbreviated protocol, yeah. Focus on the big tension carriers. The key is to inhale and tense hard for about 5 seconds, then exhale and release instantly. And just notice the difference. Start with a fist clench, then a shoulder shrug, hike them way up to your ears, hold it, then drop.
What about the face and lower body?
A face scrunch, squeeze everything tight, eyes, jaw, then release. And for the lower body, a toe curl. Curl your toes down, engage your calves, dig your heels in, hold it, and then release, really feeling that connection to the ground.
But what if relaxation isn't what you need? What if you're so full of fight energy that sitting still is just agonizing?
That is a very real scenario. And for that, you need isometric discharge, specifically the wall push. When your body is flooded with mobilization energy, it has to go somewhere. The wall push gives it a safe outlet.
This sounds super practical. What's the protocol?
You stand facing a wall, about arm's length away. Plant your feet. Put your palms flat on the wall, and then just push with everything you've got, like you're trying to move the building.
So you're engaging your whole body.
The whole posterior chain, your core, triceps, legs. And critically, you drive your heels into the floor. That's the grounding part. You hold that max tension for 10 or 20 seconds, then step back and shake it all out. It's incredibly effective for dissipating that rage or panic energy.
We should probably also give a quick mention to TRE, trauma-releasing exercises.
Yes, TRE is based on the idea that mammals naturally shake. They have these neurogenic tremors to discharge adrenaline after a threat. Humans tend to suppress that.
So TRE tries to induce that shake safely.
Right, by fatiguing certain muscle groups to trigger a natural therapeutic tremor. But a big caution here, it can release a lot of stored trauma from the bottom up, so it needs to be done in small, titrated doses.
Okay, so after muscles, we have the external senses. This is about shifting our brain activity.
It is. It's about shifting from the default mode network, which is the rumination and worry network, to the task positive network, which processes external sensory input.
And the classic tool for that is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique.
It's so effective because it forces your brain to stop its internal story and start labeling and categorizing things in the outside world. But the key is in the quality of your engagement.
What do you mean by that?
When you get to 5 things you see, don't just list them. You have to describe them in detail to force your PFC to engage. I see a blue pen with a silver clip. I see a tiny crack in the ceiling. The detail is everything.
Right, that turns it from a passive look into an active cognitive task.
Exactly. Then 4 things you can touch. Again, focus on temperature and texture, the cool metal of a ring, the rough fabric of your jeans. Then 3 things you can hear. Isolate them. The hum of a computer, a bird outside, your own breathing.
And the last 2 senses can be trickier.
They can. 2 things you can smell. You might have to use an object like a cup of coffee or even just the air in the room. And finally, 1 thing you can taste. A sip of water is perfect for this.
Okay, now for the hard reset. The nuclear option for full-blown panic attack, the mammalian dive reflex.
This is pure biological override. It's an ancient survival reflex that's designed to conserve oxygen when a mammal is submerged in cold water. But for our purposes, it's a massive, immediate break on the sympathetic system.
And it's triggered by the trigeminal nerve around the eyes and nose.
Correct. When cold water hits that nerve, it triggers an immediate, dramatic wave of parasympathetic dominance. The vagus nerve fires like crazy, causing bradycardia, a sharp slowing of the heart rate by 10 to 25%. Instantly.
It's a circuit breaker for a panic attack.
It's the ultimate circuit breaker. This is for when the heart rate is sky high, maybe over 120 beats per minute, and nothing else is working.
So what's the exact protocol?
You need ice water, around 15 degrees Celsius or 59 Fahrenheit. You take a breath, hold it, and then submerge your upper face, eyes, and nose have to be wet for about 30 seconds.
The combination of the cold and the breath hold is what does it.
It is. If you can't do that, a frozen gel pack or a bag of ice pressed firmly against your eyes and cheekbones while holding your breath is the next best thing.
And finally, a quick word on simple tactile anchoring.
Yeah, things like a weighted blanket on your lap, or even just a textured fidget object. They provide continuous sensory data that competes with the internal feelings of anxiety. And deep pressure is proven to increase serotonin and decrease cortisol. It's a gentle, constant anchor.
Okay, that is a huge toolkit. But the tools are only as good as how you apply them. We need to talk about clinical integration, right? Things like titration and pendulation.
Absolutely. These concepts come from fields like somatic experiencing. Titration just means less is more. If your nervous system is really fragile, trying to do 5 minutes of box breathing might just flood and overwhelm you.
So you do it in small drops.
Small, manageable drops, 1 or 2 cycles of breath, one small push against the wall. You introduce the resource gently.
And pendulation is that back and forth movement.
It is. It's guiding your attention from the distress, the storm, back to the resource, the anchor, and then back again.
Can you give us a really concrete example of that?
Sure. You might notice the tightness in your chest. That's the distress. You stay with it for just a second. Then you consciously move your attention to the feeling of your feet solid on the floor. That's the anchor. You stay with that feeling of stability for longer. Then you might gently check back in with the chest just to see if it's changed before returning to your feet. That back and forth builds your system's capacity to handle intense sensations without getting stuck.
And this all leads perfectly into Dr. Dan Siegel's concept of the window of tolerance. All these tools are about getting us back into that optimal zone of arousal.
That's the goal. And to do that, you have to know which direction you've been pushed.
So if you're in hyperarousal, the racing mind, the sympathetic state, you need specific tools.
You need downregulating tools. So that's anything with a long exhale, like 4-7-8 breathing, or a hard reset, like the dive reflex, or a discharge tool like the wall push. You're trying to hit the brakes.
And if you're in hyperarousal, the numb, dissociated dorsal vagal state, the needs are the total opposite.
Totally opposite. You need upregulating, stimulating tools. So that's sensory input, like the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Or active movement like the wall push to mobilize energy. You're trying to gently press the gas. The more you practice this, the wider your window of tolerance becomes.
And we have to mention the contraindications, the do-nots.
Definitely. If you have asthma, you want to avoid aggressive breath holds like in box breathing. Stick to gentle diaphragmatic breathing.
And for someone in that dorsal vagal freeze state,
Deep relaxation techniques like a full PMR session can actually make the dissociation worse. It can pull them further into collapse. For them, you need active, engaging grounding. And of course, for anyone with trauma, always give the option to keep the eyes open.
let's pull this all together with a quick comparative matrix. Best tool for the job.
Okay. For insomnia or severe agitation, you want strong downregulation, so 4-7-8 breathing is your go-to.
For a full-blown panic attack, the hard reset is the mammalian dive reflex.
For dissociation or flashbacks where you need to get back into the present moment, the 5-4-3-2-1 technique is perfect for disrupting that internal loop.
And for that raw anger or fight energy, the wall push is the best way to safely discharge it.
This has been such a deep dive. I mean, we started with that universal feeling of a racing mind and learned it's not a failure of logic, it's a physiological event, cortical shutdown.
Right. And we mastered the core mechanism, that afferent vagus nerve pathway. We mapped out the how, the ACE framework, the science of the vagal brake, the sensory resets.
It's a full suite of tools for what we call biologically congruent stabilization.
And that core metaphor holds true. The anchor doesn't stop the waves. You'll still feel the feelings. But it makes sure the ship, the self, stays stable and tethered until the storm passes.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to take away. Since all of this really hinges on knowing your own arousal state, try this today. Shift your attention away from your thoughts and just pay deep attention to your body. Try to identify which polyvagal state you're in. Are you mobilized and anxious? Are you frozen and checked out? Or are you in that safe, connected state of social engagement? Because just recognizing the state you're in is the first and most powerful step toward regulating it.
Your tools. It's the strength to build anew. It's the light to guide you through. It's the choice to find your way. Starting here, starting today.
It can feel really counterintuitive to stop talking and start breathing, especially when your brain is screaming at you to solve the problem. But remember what we discussed today. You cannot rationalize with a nervous system that thinks it's being chased by a lion. You have to speak its language, and that language is sensation, breath, and movement. This week, I want you to practice just one of the somatic tools we covered, whether it's the physiological sigh or just splashing cold water on your face. Don't wait until you're in a full-blown panic to try them. Practice them when you're calm, so your body knows what to do when the pressure hits. If you need a guide, open the Your Journey, Your Tools app. The breathing section is designed specifically to help you hack that vagus nerve and send a signal of safety from your body up to your brain. Next week, we're going right to the source of that danger signal. We're going to open up the hood and look at the engine of your anxiety in episode 4, Anxiety's core engine, the amygdala. Until then, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think. I'll catch you on your journey.